Hey there, welcome back to another Rhino tutorial. Today we're going to be covering movement and duplication. The first command we're going to start with is move. Select the geometry you want to move, and then type move. Move is going to ask you to pick a point that you want to move from. I'm going to choose this bottom corner here, and let's say I want to align it with the top corner over here. I can drag it over and click again to move that object there. Let's take a look at that again in perspective view. So if I were to move this object, one of the options I can choose is this box here that says vertical. Now, when I choose vertical, it locks to only vertical movement. This is helpful if I want to always ensure that this red triangle shows above this purple shape. Like that. The next command we're going to look at is rotate. So I'm going to select the geometry that I want to rotate and type in rotate. Rotate gives us two options. We first have to pick the center point of rotation, but we can also choose whether we want to make copies or not. In this case, we'll say yes. So I can choose any point to be the center point of rotation. I can choose a point on a different object. I can choose a point on the object we're rotating. For this example, I'm going to choose arbitrarily this point over here. So the next point I'm going to choose is the reference point. Simply drag and click whenever you want to make a copy. If you don't want to make a copy, just drag and click to finish the command, and it will rotate that object from where it was to where you want it to be. Now let's take a look at the copy command. So I'm going to select this triangle again and type copy. And just like with move, I can choose a base point and choose another point to move it to. But with copy, it will obviously make a copy. Say I want to make a copy a specific number of units away. For example, I can type 5 and have this distance be locked to 5 units. It's worth noting that many commands in Rhino work like this. For rotation, you can type in the exact number of degrees you want to rotate. For move, you can type in the exact number of units you want to move, and so on. Now let's take a look at array. Just like with the other commands, I'm going to select the geometry that I want to array first, and then I'm going to type array into the command line. Array is going to ask us for a couple different things. First, it's going to ask us for the number of objects that we want to go in the x direction. Right now, there's one object, so you have one here. So if we only want one object in the x direction, like how it is now, we're going to leave 1 there. But in this case, we want a little more. So I'll type 3. And then the number in the y direction, I'll also type 3. And in case you forget which direction is which, there's a little key down here that says which direction you're looking in. So this is the x direction, this is the y direction, and we're not going to array anything in the z right now. But if we went into perspective, that would be arraying vertically. Since we're working in 2D, I'm just going to leave that at 1 and hit done. And now it's going to ask us how to determine the spacing. We can either type in the exact distance we want these things spaced, or we can go over here and click on this point and drag this array out until it's spaced how we want it to be spaced. So when you're happy with how it's spaced, you can click again, and now all these objects turn pink. It's going to ask you once more if you're happy with all of these settings, and if you are, press done. So now we have an array, but there are actually many different variations on the array command. Let's take a look at some of those. We're going to select our objects, type array, but this time we're going to type array polar. Right here. Now it's going to ask us for the center of the polar array. Choose this point as the center. It's asking us for the number of items. We'll say 8. And here the angle to fill is referring to the angle in which we want to put all of our geometry on. So in this case, I'm going to do something roughly like 270. You can see we get the same kind of print preview that we had before, and we get the option to alter any of these options just like before. I'm happy with how it is, so I'm going to press done. And now we have our geometry arrayed in a polar arc. Another type of array we can do is array on curve. So I'm going to sketch a little curve here. And now we're going to select these objects, type array, curve. It's going to ask us what path curve we want to use. I'm going to choose this one that we just sketched, and now we get a different looking dialog box that comes up here. You can either choose to use number of items along the entire curve, which divides that curve evenly with those number of items, or you can choose distance between items. In this example, we're going to do number of items. On this curve, I want 4. For this example, I'm going to use no rotation, which is going to fix everything in the orientation that it currently is in. I'm going to press array, and now you can see that these objects are arrayed along this curve. It's worth noting that these objects don't get placed on this curve, but that their initial distance away from the curve is maintained. The next command we're going to look at is orient. So I'm going to take our shapes, type orient. Now it's going to ask us for a series of reference points. The first reference point we're going to pick is here, second reference point here, and now wherever we draw our next reference points is where this shape is going to move. So I'll choose the next reference point to be here, and then drag the last one out here. Now it's worth looking at the options for the orient command. We can choose to make copies with every orient, and we can choose to scale either in one direction or in all 3 directions based on the distance between the 2 reference points. So we'll check both of those things just to see how they work. So I'm going to choose my reference point 1, reference point 2, and I'm going to make a copy with this next shape, and you can see that the distance between the second reference point and the first point is determining the scale. And then when we're happy, we press done, and then hit enter. The last commands we're going to cover today are align and distribute. So let's say we group this object as one object and copy it in a more free-form kind of way. Maybe something like this, but I want all of these aligned vertically. I can select them and type align. And we get all these different options for how to align them. I'm going to vertically center them. And you can see now that I get to choose where I want to place them. So I'll place them here. And let's say I want them evenly distributed. I would select them and type distribute. And now it's asking us which axis we want to distribute in. I want to distribute in the y-axis, so I'm going to press Y. And now everything is evenly distributed in the y-axis. So that's all for movement and duplication. Join us next time. We'll be talking about printing.